This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech players in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Hey guys, welcome back to Breaking Banks Europe. My name is Matteo Rizzi. I am the executive producer for the show. Today we talk with Paola Bellizia, and you will see why for me is a true honor to have her on the podcast. And this is a Fintech4Good series. Paola, it's a pleasure. Very welcome to Breaking Banks Europe.
The pleasure is all mine, Matteo. I couldn't be happier to be here at the show with you today. And yeah, let's have a great conversation. I'm sure I'm going to learn a ton from you as well.
No, I don't think so, but thank you for flattering. Flattering your host will bring you a long way. Listen, so Paola Bellizia is your current job is VP of Global Payments at eBanks, but you have an outstanding career, from Facebook to Google in the tech space. And today you're, if I can describe in one line, you're more on a mission than on a job. Could you please share with us a couple of minutes your story?
Yes, no, absolutely. And thanks for the compliments on my career. I think, today I'm proudly leading together with, the executive team of eBanks, what you described well as our mission. And I love to start every conversation, Matteo, talking about the mission that we are in, which is to provide access to hundreds of millions of people that today might not have access to the best services, digital goods, all kinds of, education and services that will change their lives, together with global brands that want to have, their business into what we call rising markets, right? Which are the economies that are growing the most. So access, and we are going to talk about access also on a diversity and inclusion lens, which is super dear to us, to our culture at eBanks. So connecting those two things together, providing financial inclusion, digital access, and diversity and inclusion as well in today's world, really inspires me, right? So that's what I'm living today in my job at eBanks, in my position at eBanks. And then I come from technology, and we are a technology company as well. I think technology can be used for good, right? I think despite all the challenges that the world has today, we are in a better position in terms of empowering more and more people. Right, more people are coming to the markets. More people are having conditions to have access to technology, to education, to services. So, I'm a firmly believer in technology, and that's why I think I brought my career and study. I was a programmer, right? I was graduated as a programmer, an IT programmer, and I used to be a programmer in technology teams. So, I think that resonated a lot on me.
Yet another thing we have in common, not only the passion for including people digitally and financially, but I am also a computer programmer that never wrote a line of code for work in his life. I have a doctorate in computer science, and I never wrote one line of code for
I
business.
knew there was more in common. There was more in common. So I was, the first years of my career, I actually did some lines of code. But if you ask me to program today, I would do that through the low code kind of platforms, right? But I have a deep appreciation of for the devs work and the devs teams in the world. Everything that we're living today goes through a line of code, right, Matteo? So it's good that people like you and me, we understand that to bring to the no code world as well.
Absolutely. So there are so many avenues of conversation we could talk together about. But before we dive into a couple of them, I would like you to start wearing the inclusion lens because I know that you are chairing a group within the G20 that is specifically focused for gender inclusion. Could you tell us a little bit more about it, please, Paola?
Sure. So throughout my career, in all my leadership positions, I've been advocating for inclusion, right? With my leadership hat in terms of, providing or working to have the right representation of all my minority or not well represented groups. That's the way that I like to talk about. So I became, let's say, one voice, one recognized voice, especially in Brazil and Latin America around the topic. So today, Brazil, the G20, right, which is an organization that unites the 20 biggest economies around the top agendas for the world. And around those 20 economies, each year, one of those countries takes the leadership of that agenda. And this year, Brazil is the leader of G20. And then out of the entire, let's say, organization of that agenda, you have other entities, other organisms that supports the G20. And one of those is what we call Business 20, the B20. And we have several task forces. And on Brazil leadership this year was the first time that an action council, which is a special task force, has been formed to work and propose public policies around women and diversity in business, right? So I'm working with women and notable people around those 20 economies together with me as my co-chairs to work on those public policies to guarantee that we are going to advance faster on especially women representation, but not only, because a country like Brazil can expand that agenda to other underrepresented groups as well. So I'm working as a chair of this special task force, of this Action Council, working with, these amazing, especially women, on fields like science, technology, biotechnology, e-commerce, innovation, China, Russia, India, Turkey, South Africa, Brazil, US, Italy, and has been just amazing. We are at the end of the work. We are going to make a recommendation of this public policy in the next few weeks. And then there is a huge agenda of advocacy to involve the entire society around that. I'm really proud of that because this combines also the DNA of the company that I represent, eBanks. We are very, very, believers. We are strong believers of the diverse agenda. So this has been just fantastic. And I was so flattered with the invitation, Matteo, humble and flattered with the invitation.
So first of all, and this is like a side note that I make publicly to our couple of million auditors, we will invite you to one of our big platforms in Africa. We do two platforms per year, one in Ghana, one in Rwanda. There are events with presidents and ministers focused on inclusion, financial wealth. So I think a program like this deserves to be visible to the broadest possible platform. So consider yourself officially invited, Paola. And something else now. So I read that almost 10% of the world population, 650 million people, will need to be digitally upskilled from now on 2030. And by digitally upskilled means anything, right? From the basic of social media for the micro SMEs in Africa up to the coders, AI coders that need to be upskilled because they can't get decent salaries or because people that can hire these talents and cannot find it. Half of them are likely to be women, so that's the good news. But the question to you is, what is the way to do upskilling at scale? Because, there are a gazillion initiatives around the planet. Some of these are starting from the bottom of the pyramid. Let's say, hey, we take people with no notion of anything and we bring them to the digital world. In my humble opinion, the top of the pyramid, so the coders that have some notions, but they need to work for the Googles and the startups of this, of the tech industry, are maybe lacking because universities can't follow. So it's a huge ship. How do you steer that ship of upskilling? It sounds like an amazing challenge, right?
It is. It is an amazing challenge. And one thing that I would add to your observation, Matteo, is that the velocity of change is posing another challenge into that, because we need to run against time to upskill these people, because technology is transforming everything, right? The academy or academic fields, the governments, the private sectors, the entrepreneurship field. So we need to run against time. In my view, that's why, organizations or entities or projects like, the G20 can be powerful, because can align the worldwide community and governments on responsibility, right? How the different sectors of the society are going to be responsible and accountable to make this upskilling happen. I don't think one sector of economy will make it. I don't think it's the government alone. And I think it's all the agents of society working together. I think the private sector and me working on the business part of this challenge, I think we are super accountable, right? Everyone needs to do their part in upskilling the population with the lens of inclusion as well, right? As you said, 50% of this 10% of the world population is going to be in need of upskilling. Of course, everyone is important, but making sure that no one is left behind, it's super important. And I want to make to give you an example of how this responsibility actually takes place. For us at eBanks, we do projects, even if it's at scale of the operation impact that we have today, which is not 8 billion people, but we do have projects that make sure that in the communities that we are acting, we do our part. Like we have a project called Códigos do Amanhã, which means in English, tomorrow's code, which is envisioning to bring people to the digital literacy, people that comes from vulnerability sectors of society, right? People that are out of the matrix, the purchase power matrix, or the having access to opportunities to get a job, or to entrepreneurs, or etc. So, and we do that. It's hundreds. It's not hundreds of millions, but it's hundreds. But in the communities that we are in, we want to make sure that we are doing our part. So I think it's not a simple answer to your question. I think it's more a reflection that we need to do every day. Are we doing our part? Right? All the companies and governments and education systems making sure that digital skills are being deployed and are being shared with the population. And then I have my part as a mom as well, right? I have 2 kids, and I make sure that they understand that everything is going to go through technology. They need to know what to ask. If they don't want to be developers like you and me, that's fine. But I want to make sure that they understand what comes with a increasing digitally transformed world. Make sense?
I agree. Absolutely. And, I love the fact in the first 30 seconds you mentioned the private sector, which is, in my opinion, the player that has on one side more potential and more velocity, as you said, because the private capital always comes faster by definition. And I wanted to have your opinion on, is the education system today that you see, especially in emerging markets, sort of, adapting itself fast enough? Because unfortunately, I don't think so. So,
Yeah.
I was in a panel in Accra last week in this, it's called 3i event, 3i Africa event that we organized with my company and Elevandi from the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And there was one panelist on the talent, let's say, stream. He was saying that the universities in some cases are the enemy, because they are so anchored in the past and in the way of teaching that is, so outdated. And today, you mentioned no code, with AI no code, you could build application without actually having previous, knowledge. And he was saying something super strong. He was saying, listen, it is easier to educate a farmer to become an AI engineer working for Google than someone who, studied AI at in a given university with a bad curriculum to do the same. It was a bit paradoxical, but I think if I have also two kids, so I was accompanying them to the choice of the school, right? And frankly, I see that in 30 years program didn't change that much. The length of the study might change, but when you see the content, I don't know what's your take on this.
Profound reflections, I would say. Let me answer your provocation, which is a very good one, telling my story. I didn't go to let's say, a traditional university. I did a technology and a preparation, kind of a high-end or high education course, not high-end, high education course. It was a 3 years course that would, give me the necessary knowledge to go to the market and practice as soon as possible what I wanted to be. And I found that one of the most important decisions of my career, because I was not looking for, traditional checking the box kind of education. I was not, for me. So that's why I share my personal view, and I try to do that for my kids as well. And that was fantastic, Matteo, because I could, get right away programming, right away understanding what I wanted to do, and then moving away super quickly to the business track of a career. So I would say we need options. And today we don't have options. The only option in some countries, and I can tell you that Brazil, there are not many options. We need options for people that want to do vocational courses, for people that want to do to be practitioners, for people that want to be academic leaders. And today, I think we don't have the diversity of alternatives for people to go in. And to be frank, I think the education world could be a little bit more disruptive themselves, right? I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen. People will find alternatives.
Absolutely. And talking about adapting, I was reading the other day that Brazil is actually a digital champion in mobile payments, and in the speed of growth in terms of digital payments. And digital financial industry in general, even despite the fact that you see the new banks of the situation that are leading the pack, and after talking about years that the digital banks could not be profitable, all of a sudden you have champions in your own in your country that are actually a very good example for the world. Digital identity and micropayments are sort of the backbone, right, to start including people financially, right? And what is, and also, please share what you're doing at eBanks as well, right? Because it's super important. How do you guys see the infrastructure work that is necessary to enable this, right? Because it's great to be financially included, but if I don't know who you are, and if I cannot trace what you do, I cannot give you credit. So like identity and payments and micropayments are the basics to be able to build the financial services on the top. But how do you do this when you have to deal with hundreds of millions of people? Because Brazil seems to do it pretty well.
I think so. I think that Brazil is a fantastic successful story. I think India is a fantastic successful story as well, given the scale of the country, right? 1.4 billion people. But let me start with Brazil, and then I can talk about our own journey as a company to go and serve those countries. So Brazil has been, booming. Today, I was looking at the most refreshed, the most updated number. Today, Brazil instant payments represent 15% of the worldwide instant payment volume of transactions in the world.
Yeah.
Brazil is not 15% of the population. Brazil is not the 15% of the GDP yet. So I think there's something happening in Brazil, and has to do with the PIX, right?
Of course.
PIX is the instant payment that was launched in Brazil by the Central Bank of Brazil in 2020, following a good example of India, not necessarily copying everything, but very, very much inspired in India. And the results just, less than 4 years out, because PIX is not yet 4 years. It's just amazing. Has been adopted by 80% of the adult population. It's tracking to be 40% of the volume of transactions, matching the penetration of cards transactions just 1 year from now. And it's the most known payment method by the Brazilian population just in 4 years. And there's something that you just mentioned that I wanted to highlight, which is gender inclusion involves financial inclusion, right? So with more women having access to those kind of payment methods, or digital wallets, or mobile money, that is the case in Africa, you end up promoting gender inclusion by promoting financial inclusion with all those innovations. So it's all about the innovation that is happening. What did it take to Brazil? I think, Matteo, in my personal view, it took the central bank, right, to have a vision, right? And then working together with the entire ecosystem of, banks and fintechs together. But, it was led by the central bank to put some milestones and ensuring that all the players were following. So the incumbents didn't have much of a choice, to be honest. They needed to follow the rules as well. And then the fintechs was also playing their roles, also having to follow the rules. And then all of a sudden you have a just new platform, new payment method that is including people. Is an information that we have from our own data, Mateus, show that from the people that was doing their first, I wrote this to make sure that I got it right, but from all the people that made their first e-commerce online payment in Brazil, 95% did it with PIX.
Oh my God, for the first, amazing.
That's amazing. So this is about inclusion. So I think it took a well succeeded approach by the Central Bank of Brazil. I'm super proud, and I'm a fan of the work that is being done, and more to come. More innovation is come. PIX recurrent, PIX automático, what we call PIX international. I think it's becoming a platform where the banks, the fintechs, and all the players of the ecosystem are creating innovation to pile up in this platform. I think it's amazing. We see more countries wanting to understand what happened here so that it can be taken to other places in the world. And then likewise, India has been also put in an example. We at eBanks, we have been really, let's say, first movers as a fintech, first movers, and become one of the top participants on the PIX arrangements. We are one of the first in terms of volume of transactions in the country. And the success that we have been having as a company in Brazil with PIX is positioning us super well to go to India. So think about that. The Brazilian born fintech, already global from day one, arriving in India and having great chances of success because we understand what does it take to integrate instant payments, innovation with the let's say the current incumbent model. Let's say.
What
it's
a mission!
Fantastic. I'm super passionate about that.
Absolutely, we can tell. So I don't know if you can see it, but at my back you have a huge map of Africa, right? And I'm using it because I'm trying to map this African-wide exercise of talent upskilling. So visualizing it helps me to understand which universities we are bringing in and who are the partners and so on. But and the reason why I'm making this transition is because you mentioned about going abroad, right? And the internationalization, of the PIX platform, and one of the huge differences is that Brazil per se has a critical mass of users, and the numbers you were just mentioning on instant payments, are witnessing that. But in a country like Africa, for example, or if you take South America as a whole, you have an infrastructure challenge and a currency challenge, right? So how do you think we could overcome that sort of supra layer, right? That is necessary because you can't, to have an instant fixed payments between Brazil and Argentina. It's the goal, right? In Africa, you need that 20 times more because it's 53, like big and small, but there are only a couple of countries that are even remotely comparable. So if you take the ecosystem lens, how do you go about it?
I'm a big fan of what is happening in Africa as well, Matteo. And just so you know how passionate I am, I was born in Africa. I was born in
God, I didn't
Angola.
know.
Yeah. So I'm incredibly
Wow.
passionate about what is happening there. And as a company, we are learning a ton. So, and coming from technology, being passionate about technology, I think there's something in fintechs and payments that is amazing, and we could think of how to make that happen in other sectors of society, which is innovation in payments happen actually from those areas of the world, from the global south, right? So it's not a coincidence that Pix and UPI and mobile money is happening on those countries and geographies because
Or
we have
M-Pesa, for example, right?
M-Pesa, exactly, which is a bank transfer that allows people
Yes.
to top up money and be able to digitally transact, right, between one person to other. So, and you are very knowledgeable about payments. I love that. But so what is happening there is that mobile money or other agents of society, of the economy, have come to play to offer other alternatives than traditional banks. More women are being included by the mobile money in Africa than in any other platform. So I think Africa is showing us an example of how the telcos, the telecom services, are taking that role. And the population is using whatever is available with broadband access, right? With our Wi-Fi and the data plans, they are becoming more and more included on the financial system. So I think if you look to South Africa, if you look to Kenya, Nigeria, if you look to Egypt right now, there is an amazing wave of innovation happening in terms of including more people, bunkerizing with non-traditional banking, more and more people, providing more secure. And you mentioned about the digital identity and micropayments. This is it. Those platforms are bringing this technology. And then I think the governments are going to come a little bit late in the game because innovation will push them to regulate what the population is actually in need to have. So I don't think it's going to be easy, but it's moving fast. And I think the impact of Africa into the digital economy of the world is going to be amazing because it's the youngest continent. You have your map there, you know that, right? It's the youngest continent in the world. It's younger than China, right? And 1.5 billion people as well across the continent. So the power of Africa is going to play an incredible transformational role in the global economy. I think that's my view.
Absolutely. 19 years old actually is the average age of the continent. By 2050, it will be the most populated continent in the world. So, we have been working in Africa for the past decade, but 10 years ago, everyone was still thinking, even my mom was actually super worried whenever I took a plane to any African country because the image was really linked to all the prejudices, right? And today is actually the opposite. I want to wrap up and also do a last consideration about the importance of women, in the business society. I was actually reading a statistics for Africa that was saying that a woman entrepreneur taking a loan is 3 times more likely to reimburse it than a male entrepreneur. Because there is a whole, for a whole bunch of reasons, for accountability, for the fact that she's more stable, for the fact that she has this, duty to sustain the family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it seems, it is not only fair and the way it should be, but it seems also very good for the business. Is that the case? And it must. But I only have the African the African numbers. But I think that pushing women, and help them develop their business. And by the way, I didn't tell you that, but I founded a not-for-profit called Time Pledge, and the name speaks by itself. We are pledging time to coach African entrepreneurs for free, right? And we did also vertical programs for women, and we are coaching them on soft skills. My experience is that women in Africa, they have a drive, a passion, and an accountability that is unrivaled. So I wonder what your experience, because you must be talking with a lot of them, right? I'm pretty sure, and even I know you for 30 minutes, but from the kindness of your heart, I know that you have been personally speaking with a lot of women entrepreneurs. What's your experience?
Yeah, I think there's so much to do. I need to reconvene in my mind what is the right number that I wanted to share with you, but just a small fraction, like single digits of penetration in terms of the private capital investment into entrepreneurship is given to women founders. Women founders are at the very beginning of their journey. They are less likely to receive funds, less likely to have their projects approved, less likely to receive credibility, and the most likely to succeed. So there's something in terms of a glass ceiling that is happening, that in the corporate world, I think that we are a little bit more advanced because the corporations have acknowledged, have identified this as a gap. And then on the entrepreneur world, not yet so much. So yes, Matteo, I've been talking to lots of entrepreneurs. Actually, this time, I visited South Africa at the beginning of the year, and I met our team there and several of the partners. And I see that many of the fintech's leadership roles are being occupied by women, and that's the right. But a lot, but it's just 1-2% of the total ecosystem. So we need more. We need those women to succeed. Actually, the women that are arriving to those roles, we need them to succeed so that they can show up to the continent, to the country that is possible, and more women are likely to follow. Also, I would say that right now our CEO is in Africa, right? He's in Kenya. He is in Nigeria. And a big part of his agenda is going to be to speak through women entrepreneurs, through the Endeavor partnership. So we are Endeavor supported company since a long time. So we want also to make sure that we are there coaching those and providing our knowledge, our experience to more women and overall entrepreneurs. So I'm deeply passionate about that. I'm coaching more people. Because I'm based in Brazil, in São Paulo, Brazil, I'm coaching more people in Brazil, in Latin America. But we are hiring our teams in India. An important part of that are women. We are hiring our teams in Africa. An important part and critical roles are going to be women. And I will have more to share soon. Our VP in APAC in China is a woman. Our VP of operations, global operations, which is an intense operation, is a woman. So we need to be out there walking the talk. It's not going to change overnight, but it's going to change.
We need stories, and ladies and gentlemen, we need more people like Paula with that passion, that drive, and that mission. Paula, thank you very much for being with us today.
I'm the one to thank, and always available if you need to. If we need to talk and do more about those topics. I'm incredibly passionate. I see you are as well. So thank you so much, Matteo, and congratulations again to you and your team.
Thank you. Episode 227. It's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with Fintech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week. on Breaking Banks Europe.